Okay, I'm in the process of replacing the drive belts on my finish mower, which is a WAC. It's model number GM RD72, 72 6-foot cut. I have it on the back of my CK20 Kioti tractor. So basically underneath, I pulled these bolts out ahead of time and I put this tool for popping ball joints under there to raise this. You can see the pulley underneath. They're a double pulley. There's two belts, so one will feed the left, one will feed the right. This particular one, the one that feeds on the left, as you're looking at the back of the tractor, is the lower set of belts, but both belts are the same length. So I'm gonna go get the belts out of the truck and start putting them on. Okay, so the first attempt on these belts, I wasn't sure what all the numbers meant matching up these belts. I tried using the model number of the cutter, ordered them online, and they sent me one large belt when this particular cutter takes two. I guess this may pick it up, but it's a B74. In my first trip, I thought that meant the diameter of the belt. The gal that was helping me at Tractor Supply thought so also. She gave me the belts, and that was a belt that was 74 by 5/8, and it was way too short. I had a hard time trying to get it on. It was getting dark last night, so went back there today. They gave me no problem returning the belts, and this is what I found out. When you look at the B74 number and you look at the sizing, because they had a tool for measuring the belts. Obviously we didn't get it right, but you look at the 5/8 by 77. That 77 is the outer diameter of the belt. So hopefully these fit right. We'll start putting them on. Okay, so as I said before, put this wedge out because it had to be raised off the bottom in order to get the belts on. One of these pulleys is mounted on the top, which is on the gearbox, and the other pulley is mounted on the bottom, which is on the deck of the cutter. So that's why you, as you're feeding these, you got to be mindful of how you put these on. So I put the first one on. It goes around the top. We'll go around to the other side. And it goes on this outer pulley. And then we'll do the opposite. Put the other ones on the bottom. And then we'll worry about putting the bolts back in and tensioning this thing back up. Yeah, so I'm doing this with a cell phone. I don't have a tripod or anything. So actually, this is what I was trying to explain a minute ago, and I kind of got it wrong. Put on that pulley, but this pulley's got to come back off to fit the one belt on the bottom over here. So they both kind of have to be done at the same time. So this pulley goes on the bottom, then we feed this one on the top at the same time. And this one over here is on the bottom, so it's kind of got to go around the shaft. That's a little tricky, and that's why that wedge tool is in there. All right, I got to put this down because I need two hands, so I'll be back in a second. Okay, so I got the belts under there on the other part, and that comes out here and then just goes on to this pulley. And it looks like the sizes are going to be okay. So then, of course, I'll clean all this grass and stuff out there before I put it all together. But so now we want to take this fork out, allow this thing back to fall back down, and we'll replace all the bolts and then tension it up. I'll be back in a minute. Okay, so we put these bolts down in. They're threaded right down into the deck. Just tighten them down. All these bolts seem to work with the 11/16 wrench. Okay, so the next one we put on is putting the bolts back in for the gearbox. These bolts feed up from the bottom, and a carriage bolt slot. Okay, I got all 4 of these bolts. They feed up from the bottom. Carriage bolts. The nuts are they're nylock nuts. So we'll get those snugged up a little bit, just enough so that the gearbox can still be tensioned. So here I am on the other side. There's the 3-point hook up in the front with the PTO shaft. And you see these belts are still loose. This tensioner, which is a bolt that feeds right above the PTO shaft into this part where the gearbox mounts, and I'm gonna thread that in. And of course, if I went through the garage, get out my socket set. But I have the same 11/16 wrench, and I'm just going to start tensioning it. I'll be back in a minute. Of course, so I don't have a manual for how tight to make these belts. Originally thought, oh, hey, that's a little loose. When I look at the old slots where the bolts were adjusted, were right there or a little bit past. This side might be a little loose, but as a rule of thumb, when all else fails, I always learn you tension a belt to the point where it will turn in the middle 90 degrees and not want to go too much more. That's supposed to be the right tension on most belts. So I am there. So I'm gonna just turn it a couple more turns, call it that. I'm replacing the blades also, and then I'm gonna start it up. And as long as I don't hear any squealing or anything, we'll run it for a little while and then check it again and then put the covers back on. Okay, so we have that tensioned up. Just a couple turns past what the other one was. So on the tension pulley, they also have a lock nut, a jam nut. So we're going to put that on there, tighten it against itself so it doesn't move. And then I'm going to replace the blades, start it up, and see how it does. Okay, took out one of the old blades. Seems like there's a shoulder up here. I don't have all the right wrenches, but I think I can get it done. I got an adjustable wrench to put up here, and 1 1/8" wrench, combination open end and box wrench to handle the nut. Okay, I replaced all 3 of the blades. Knocked a little bit of the garbage out from under there. Alright, we gotta start it up and see how it runs with that belt tension, and then we'll blow this off or power wash it. Then we'll grease the spindles and check the gearbox oil and put the covers back on. That's it. Thanks. Here it is a week or so later. I had to cut off some of these bolts that were going down through the deck and knock out the welded nuts. So I ran bolts up from the bottom, tightened them up with the jam nut. We'll just run them the other way for putting the cover on. I did tighten up the belts after the last run a little more. So we got about a 1/2 inch of deflection. That should work well. It wasn't slipping, but it felt like it needed to be a little longer. And so I'm just going to get out the hose and clean up the grass and put the covers on. Little anti-seize on the thumb screws. Put an anti-seize on all these rusted screws. I know this stuff's nasty, it gets all over your hands, but that's why a lot of these, or a few of these, had to be cut off because I just couldn't get them free. One of them snapped, and the other one I just decided to cut off. There it is with the covers back on.